Oh man, I had a really bad day today.
Why? What happened?
Well, they got these new gene therapy products, these experimental medical products that they're giving people for the Rona, right?
Experimental, you say?
Yeah, well, that whole emergency use authorization thing. I'm pretty sure that's what it means because there's no long-term data to give us warm, fuzzy feelings about...
No long-term data. We're talking science.
Right. Yes, I forgot. Sorry. Just say the word science. Just say the word science and everything is good.
You can practically get pregnant now. That's how good science has gotten.
You know what? I've always wondered what it would be like, and it's kind of cool because I saw people before, men would put on that electrical belt that shocked them for labor, And
I
yeah,
can't say I've heard of that. But
yeah, there's this thing they put on, and it electrocutes them so they know what labor's like, and then
oh.
yeah, all you need then is a kidney stone, just to pass a kidney stone, and then you get the full effect. But this way is genuine. There's no having to put on some weird electric chair type device, and
you get
I've always
the
wondered.
joys of childbirth.
Yeah. Well, I've always wondered. I always thought it was kind of lame that we got robbed of that, and they fixed that. I mean, they can't keep kids from getting cancer, but men can get pregnant now, so that's great.
Wallace, that's how advanced we have become. We also we're on our way to Mars, but then also I noticed that the sinks never work in the airport bathrooms. So
right. Well, it's
space.
a trade-off.
Yeah.
It's a trade-off. We have
to make sure that kids can come out of your crotch, just like they can come out of mine.
Exactly. When I went to the doctor and I said, you know what, I'd like to get pregnant, he said, well, we can do that, thankfully, because we diverted the money from the kid cancer research. We have
Aren't
our
you
priorities
lucky?
straight.
Aren't
Yeah,
you lucky?
I gotta say.
Well,
I
so
am.
what happened? Did you have to take one, or what happened?
Well,
the drink.
I got a kid, and other people sometimes like to pick up and touch my kid, and they might be family members, but when they've decided to become volunteer lab rats for pharmaceutical companies, and they've taken an experimental medical product that just might have them shedding certain undesirable microorganisms or
Yeah, it seems like the shedding is huge.
yeah,
I'm
I mean we don't
hearing
have
about
any
that in
we don't have any
families.
real data, right? So how do we know?
Well, we have tons of made up data.
All right, but as a parent, can you
That doesn't make
trust
you
that,
feel better? Oh.
right? I mean, if I could see the studies, then I could make up my own mind. But
You can't see the
Yeah.
studies.
well, I don't know if the studies exist because I heard the other day a doctor on the news straight out say, we can assure pregnant women that these products are safe.
Oh my
And-
God, they're actually trying to say that to pregnant women? I thought on the insert it always says this is not for pregnant women.
Right, but you've got these expert medical doctors, I assume, although I'm starting to wonder what that word even means anymore.
It means that you are a good pharma salesman. What?
Yeah, you're a glorified drug dealer, and you know how to fill out a prescription, and you know how to get away with lying, I guess, because only a liar could say something without evidence as if they had the evidence, right? I mean, hypothetically speaking.
Hypothetically. So wait
Yeah.
now. So you were worried about your child being exposed to what other people are providing.
Right.
Is that right?
I'm not willing to take the risk with the lack of evidence when there's no long-term data to say what is and isn't happening, and there's a potential for there to be a risk, then I'm going to take action to eliminate that risk. And in this case, that action is making sure that anyone that's decided to be a volunteer lab rat for a pharmaceutical company doesn't get to hug my kid.
Well, and I hear the flip side all the time of people saying um, that they're not allowed to visit other people in their family because they haven't done XYZ. Like until you take the drink, you're not allowed to see your grandkids or
Right.
it definitely works in the reverse. Like everybody, the whole system and the machine that wants to make you do it, they don't have mercy giving you a choice.
Now there's extortion happening on both sides. There's extortion that is being influenced and upheld by the establishment, saying, if you want to be able to hug your grandmother in the old folks' home, you're going to have to submit to being a lab rat. If you want to go on vacation, you're going to have to be a lab rat.
Yeah.
And on the other side of it, you have now a new kind of extortion where those of us who understand that this is all extremely experimental, we've got to now become extortionists to the people that are submitting by saying the more you comply, the more that you're not welcome to interact with my family.
Well, I
Because-
think that would be hilarious. And I see it going down that track. And people are always surprised by it. Like the people who are so power crazed, power hungry, control crazed, they're so surprised when the nicer people push back and say, no, thank you. I really don't need to have you over. Which I guess is why America's heading towards civil war, because people are just fed up. People are just sick of it. The people I know, the nice, kind, good, silent majority, they just don't care anymore. They're over it.
Yeah, and I think that's true all over the world. In every Western country, there is a divide between the portion of the population that believes everything that's on the news and trusts the government and believes that the people in government actually love them and have their best interest at heart. And then you have people that think. So those are two
Why in the
diametrically
world would anybody think in 20 why would anybody think in 2021 that the government loves you and the government is about keeping you safe? Like, how would you even put your brain in that mode?
Well, you know, it's an ironic thing, and it's actually paradoxical because those people are also the ones that somehow believe they're against the establishment, and they believe that, you know, they get out in the streets and protest. They protest the patriarchy, and they protest white supremacy, and they protest the corporate monster that always puts profit before people, and then in the next breath they stand.
And yet
Next
they think
to these
pharma is
corporations.
charity.
Right. Yeah, they believe that big oil can manufacture science, but that big pharma can't, right? So, and the funny part is
Wallace.
they're in favor of renewable energy, and if you look at who owns renewable energy, it's a bunch of Rockefeller subsidiaries. So, you're
Well-
really, you need to look below the surface, right?
Like we were talking about, we're looking at a massive scam. A scam.
Oh yeah.
And the world has always lied to people. It's always been full of lies, but the scam has completely gone off the rails. The propaganda is now such a lie. In every direction, it's just astounding.
Yeah, it's been escalating incrementally, but now it's kind of going hyperbolic. It's the exponential growth factor is starting to look large finally. And how do people get here, right? You know, it's like I've seen that meme. The guy's got a mask on and a face shield, and then he's reading this book about how the people in the Holocaust let it get that far, and it's ironic, right? And they had a lot of propaganda for a very short amount of time, and we've had far more propaganda for a much longer period of time to get to this point. And yeah, so we've accepted insanity as normal, and we did that a long time
Yeah.
ago when
It has
started,
become norm. It's been normalized.
yeah, we started to accept these abnormal ideas as if they could be normal too. And when you start to include the abnormal in a way where you're violating what's always been normal, then you have two conflicting ideas and you're calling both of them normal, and eventually one's going to win out. And the one with the lobbyists and the one that turns society on its head, the one that lowers the chance of offspring and a growing population, a good economy, seems to be the one that always wins, because that's the one that the establishment supports. Because it's all about destroying Western civilization, right?
Yeah, so here we have, today you had that experience with the drink. And the drink is one of many things that they are doing to us. They openly ignore what we vote for, what we ask for. They take our money. They hold us hostage. They write crazy news. They write propaganda. They churn out propaganda that the silent majority is the biggest terror threat. I mean, what about this isn't weird?
And they've been
It's all
building weird on weird on weird. Could you imagine if we just went back to 1970 and then froze society the way it was, and then jumped to 2021 and had all of this stuff happen? So it just goes 1970 and then 2021. People would actually be able to see just how crazy it is. But everything that happened in those 4 decades, 5 decades, to lead us to this point, it all built upon itself slowly. And even now, we can see how crazy it is. But you and I have also become accustomed to some of that insanity. And if we hadn't, our minds would be blown at how insane this is. We have doctors saying things that they have no way to know, as if they know it, and then advocating that children become, I mean, they're talking about 6-month-old kids submitting to being
that is really crazy.
unpaid lab rats to have these shots
for them
for no
to
reason.
say that they can use babies as, I forget the phrase for that, but I heard there was someone who said a few years ago, 2021 will be a great opportunity for the largest, it was something that meant a test, like a pharma test. It's like
The largest clinical trial or something.
For the largest trial that's ever happened, to test out drugs. The idea that they think it's okay to do that to babies is astounding. And then there was,
Unfathomable.
it was on my phone news the other day about 12 to 15-year-olds, and the idea that they just are freely doing that to kids is astounding. It is astounding that these decaying billionaires at the top of our society, these psychopaths, think that's okay to do to babies and kids. But why wouldn't they, when all of their actions have been, what is it? Silent weapons for quiet wars. I mean, there's a lot of concepts in there. It's been a quiet war for a long time. Like, I saw the autism numbers today, and you're not allowed to post that on Facebook. But right after that, I saw a woman saying how much she loves some autistic kids that are in her family. Not her kids, but relatives of hers. And I thought, yeah, of course, you love them. You love them, but they're forever trapped inside bodies that are not the men that they were intended to be.
Yeah,
Those numbers have gone off the rails.
There's a problem with accepting and loving people and then normalizing their condition.
Yeah, that's been normalized.
As if you have to normalize them to love them. And we're being told now that almost like autism's not a disorder, it's just a different personality type. Yeah, it's just a different type of person.
Like, it helps
society.
people to play the piano.
And society is the real problem. Society's been created in a way where autistic people just don't fit in. And now we can see there's so many autistic people that we have to call that normal, because they make up such a large portion of the population now, and we have to cater society to include them. And I mean, in some ways that's good, but in the way where you're saying that condition is now part of what we consider normal. And that's the changes to the DSM-5 and DSM-4. I mean, those two recent versions have thrown the ideas of disorders and normal personality types and everything just out the window and confused the issue. And it's all done intentionally so that disorders can be considered normal conditions. And it's a dangerous thing
Disorders
because
can be considered normal conditions, and yet you and I then are considered. I hate to think.
well, we're definitely we have a disorder. We have a disorder called thinking for ourselves and loving freedom, and
that is a disorder.
Yeah, that has now been defined. If you're conspiratorial minded, if you distrust your government, you have a mental disorder. But
well, that's true, and they did already take some people for questioning the narrative, and they considered that a mental problem. So I was thinking about some of the things that have been going on this year. So just come with me in your mind some of these things that have happened. We have Corona, which the World Bank openly schedules until 2025. 2025, it's on the books. Then they made the elections openly fake. It's openly a lie, so everyone they put in there is just an installation from now on. And even so, they have the news talking about what you have to do to win the next election.
Right.
Then we have all the gender stuff, all the race stuff. We have all of our agencies are in collapse, and they're openly targeting anyone who's dissenting. Then we have Rush is gone, which is a big deal, I think. Rush passed. We have all these fake trends that they're trying to convince us are coming from the people. Did you see that YouTube had to take off the dislike button?
Yes.
I was wondering how they were going to follow Biden around and fix that for
it's all just this is actually psychology. It's just human psychology that the most popular people get the least amount of positive interaction. Because, I mean, I think this is called the Howard Stern effect, where people just tune in to hear because they hate it, right? And so that's pretty much the reason why Biden got the most votes in human history, was because people hated him so much.
Well,
they just wanted more of him, right?
Well, now
and the
when
dislike
you say
button,
that,
yeah, they had to get rid of that.
yeah, because in the actual, well, I guess the drones come for us if we commit a thought crime as to what actually happened in November of 2020. The drones come. So
yes.
So that you don't get taken. I'm gonna slow my thought crime on that. But we know the numbers are not what we were told. So there's that. But then on YouTube, when people dislike the Biden videos, like that horrible Valentine's Day video, which just it had me laughing, crying, but also a little bit crying because.
But how about those tight jeans?
Oh.
Does he look good in tight jeans or what? That his butt
that
is
video,
amazing.
That video was so depressing. You had all these fake cutouts on the lawn and hearts, and the New World Order definitely has a print shop because they always have signs printed, whether they're trying to do fake color revolution in Ukraine or Egypt. Every country they have access to printers, and they always have these fake photo shoots. So like the other day, did you see the clip of it was a pile of corpses that were supposed to be in body bags,
yes,
and then one of them was smoking.
Yes, I love it.
Smoking a cigarette, and he seemed to relish it too.
That's part of the new variant, is that you come back to life for a few hours and you really need to smoke.
Oh my God!
Just
see,
part of
I
the new
would
variant.
I would not put that past them.
Yeah. I mean, that's
I
what this
would
is
not.
all leading towards. Walking Dead was supposed to be an instruction manual, and a lot of people thought
Yeah,
it
for
was.
us to kill each other.
Yeah, and so the virus is eventually going to mutate into that, and I've been sharpening my baseball bat, so I'm ready.
Wallace, that's not totally a joke.
No, it's not.
I mean,
this
there's
could.
truth to it because we don't know what they're gonna release thing after thing. They plan on sending out. You know, they have all the variants ready to go.
Well, you know something interesting. Did you hear about 10? I think it was 10 years ago in the Amazon. There was reports of a virus that was reanimating the dead for a couple hours.
And making
Yeah.
them smoke.
They did get a craving for camels because did you know 8 out of 10 doctors recommend camel?
I know
For
they
good health.
do. I know
For
they
good health.
do. Doctors have recommended everything bad,
You know
and
what?
then when you what?
Camels, now this is mainly for women that wear makeup, but if you wear makeup and you're using radioactive makeup, it's actually is a really great product. I think it's made with depleted uranium, but you just rub the lipstick on, and you turn the lights out and light a smoke, and you got a crazy light show. Now, your lips are glowing in the dark. You got your doctor-approved camels, right?
Yeah, and then all the health ministers are like 500 pounds.
Well, yeah,
So-
because you have to spend. Look, if you're a health minister, you can't spend your time working out and eating right because there is so much.
There's no salads, access. Yeah.
Well, there's so much to know. You have to do all this research and schooling, and become a doctor like Jill before you can actually understand human health enough that you can explain it to other
Yeah,
people.
she's remarkable. And what an inspiration. So stunning and brave. The only thing that would be better is if she turned into a man.
Like Dr. Richard Levine. Yes, we see the cool thing about Richard is he spent his life learning while not taking care of his body because he didn't have the time to do both. And now, yes, he looks
You
like a
can't
train
be a
wreck.
genius and eat salads.
Exactly.
Wow.
And he sacrificed himself for the rest of us. So we need to
For
be
your
appreciative
well-being.
of that. Exactly. These people sacrifice
Well,
themselves. There's a reason why.
So then
They're all 500 pounds.
these people are the ultimate martyrs. Yeah.
They
the
are.
ultimate martyrs, aren't they? Yeah.
are.
Eating a lot of
Yep.
donuts on our behalf.
You can't learn something and be the beneficiary of it at the same time. It's impossible.
So I was thinking then about what this is really about. We know it's not really about the scam. The scam is going somewhere, and the scam is very deliberate. It's very, it's like they thought out the end point, and then they thought back, okay, what do we need to do to people to get them to where we need? So what it's really about then is flattening the borders so that globalists can have top-down control. They want to change the money system. They want to change from ideas of individuals to the collective. They want to change the currency and do a cashless system. And I think the IMF has like an 18-point plan for how to switch to the digital cashless currency, which
Yes.
by the time that's done, we won't even know. And
Yeah, well,
then
the funny
there's the
thing-
fourth industrial revolution.
Oh yes. Can't forget that. Stakeholder capitalism.
Oh. Yeah. And then I have one of Anus Schwab has he's got like 4 books out, and I ordered them right away before they would be taken down.
You got
But
the
in one of
uncensored
those,
edition.
at least, he pretends he pretends like this is all a huge coincidence. So in those books, he doesn't take responsibility for saying we saw this coming. He acts like this is all a huge coincidence, but it just happens to be a really great opportunity to transform the entire globe and to take
mean to
away
build back
your
better?
property. I do. That is exactly what I mean, Wallace. 'Cause you're so astute.
What other
Yeah.
way would you build
Building
back?
back
Would you
better.
build? Who would build back worse? Who does that? That'd be
We
ridiculous.
certainly don't want to return to normal.
You need to stop
Yeah.
being such a conspiracy
Who wants?
theorist, okay? There's only
a lady
one way to
did
build
yell at
back.
me one day.
Someone
a
yelled at
lady
you?
did yell at me that I was making.
old lady.
Yeah, well, she was harsh. She was harsh that she thought I was making all that up. I'm like, it's all out there. All you gotta do, it's not even hidden. It's not even hidden. And actually, if you want to see some ballsy stuff, go on Twitter and look at the feed for the World Economic Forum.
Oh yeah.
And look at the
those
stuff
guys.
they brag about and how tone deaf it is. It's stunning.
I think it comes across more like, we're gonna get you. And then when we react, like, no you're not, and you're making me mad, then they go, whoa, you thought we meant this?
Totally do.
No.
They
No,
totally
we
do.
didn't.
I see that.
We didn't mean it that
Yeah.
way. No. we
I
didn't
see
mean it
that
way.
in their feed because they'll post and they're like, look at how great these lockdowns have been for the planet. Look how wonderful this is. This is so
Look
much
how
better.
great
And
the
then they
Earth
just
does when there's no humans.
No, there's no
That's-
people like
yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
When humans
and
are
then the
gone,
hate
everything's
comes in.
better.
I know. Yeah, that's another thing. The heating up of the men versus women and the race wars that are just designed to just put us at each other's throats and make sure we don't breed, to make sure that the girls have to turn to the state as
Yes.
the father and the boyfriend, and the men, all of their children will die off in Kleenex in a basement. Our masters could not be happier to see us fight, to see us enraged at each other. They're probably like making bank deposits straight to MGTOW.
I
They
would
just
not
send
doubt
their
it.
donations straight to MGTOW. Just
No,
keep
Henry
these
Macau.
guys. Yeah.
I want to talk to Henry Macau about his finances.
who's funding? And I don't even have a problem with whatever he wants to talk about, but as a girl, I do see that MGTOW is such a sad trick. It is such a sad trick. The ruling class has a way of designing things that however you think you're going to take power back, you're losing more.
Yeah,
So whenever
controlled-
people
controlled
think,
opposition.
even like with the GameStop stuff, definitely.
Exactly.
And I guess it's learned helplessness because we know that every time people do try to step up, they'll pretend that ordinary people created violence, or they'll pretend that because you didn't follow the rules, that's why everybody in your town died.
Right. Yeah. You didn't bow down at the foot of government, so you killed your neighbors. Yeah. That's what they're gonna say, and yeah, it's coming. People need to be ready for this insanity to go to the next level, because if you think this is it, this is just the beginning. There's
Yeah.
gonna be punishment for resisting, and there's gonna be an escalating severity of everything. And those who are already on the side of the government and believing the narrative will be told that everything bad that happens is because people who love freedom won't give it up. And they'll come to a point where they're ready to say, yeah, you know what? These people in my family, these people that live next to me that disagree, they're a danger to all of us. And yeah, you know what? They just can't be allowed to live in society with the rest of us because they're like relics from an old world, and they're dangerous. The things they believe get in the way of all of our safety.
It's interesting when I hear you say that. I feel like there's some kind of direct link between sex drive and freedom. Now maybe that's for me partly because I don't think life is worth living in a hamster cage. So if sex drive is what makes the world go round, like your instinct, your caveman instinct to go out, assert your territory, mate, breed, whatever. But It's like directly tied, so that if they can kill your sex drive, they can also kill your hunger and thirst for freedom. Does it
Yeah,
seem
I
like
think
that?
they're all related. I think they're all related. There's definitely evidence that suggests when people look back at history, we can sort of see, other than the banker wars, most conflicts kind of came from this need for resources. And when we ask why do we need the resources, well, we're trying to secure enough to feed our offspring. So, and the drive is always to procreate and leave behind descendants that'll inherit everything that we did when we leave this planet. And so, yeah, I guess everything in the end sort of comes down to the need to breed being behind most natural conflict.
Yeah, and that's kind of tied in with the World Economic Forum when they take away the resources. Yeah.
Yeah, they're falsely manipulating the resources and the supply chain to create scarcity. And
Oh,
when there's
that's for
scarcity,
sure.
people fight when there's scarcity, right? I mean,
Yeah.
every time our resources get limited, people start to get panicked and worried, and you stop thinking about the greater good or just helping your neighbors and working together, and you start thinking about your own situation. You got kids, you got people you need to feed. You start to worry that you got enough, and then they plant something in the media about toilet paper being short, and suddenly everybody's trying to buy it, and they create that scarcity. And I believe that toilet paper incident from last year was just a test run to see
I
how
think so,
easy it
too.
is to manipulate people into that scarcity panic
I think so too.
and
Yeah.
get people fighting, because there were people that were punching each other out for rolls of toilet paper, right? Now, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do when you got 2 weeks food for your kids
Wallace,
and
I was
someone?
gonna say something unflattering about them. I skipped it.
You took the high road.
I took the high road. I was gonna say something unflattering about these people who will get into fistfights over toilet paper based on an artificially created and managed and manipulated shortage.
Right. Well, we'll be seeing them again soon, and they'll probably be bashing each other's skulls in with cans of beans.
No. The problem is they want to hit us. They want to hit us when we're there trying to buy, I don't know what. Beans.
Well, I'll be at home. I'll be at home with my freeze-dried fruits and vegetables, praying for them. But if anybody has to brave the supermarkets during that time, wear a helmet, black jacket. Possibly, if you're in a concealed carry state, make sure you exercise that right, and don't
Yeah,
just think.
I don't think you have
I'm
a
going-
choice even.
Yeah, you can't just think, I'm going to the store for a can of beans. It'll be nothing. No. You're going probably to fight for your life against somebody who is totally unhinged and
Oh my God.
worried that if they don't kill you and take those cans of beans, that their kids are going to starve. So, and I've said this many times to people for years, if you want to know the thin veil of civility and how thin it really is, then just go and find yourself a father whose children haven't had any food in a week,
Yeah.
and look into his eyes, and no matter how nicely he's smiling at you, you'll see somebody willing to kill you to take one meal. Because that is underlying everybody, is the truth that when the shit hits the fan and it's you or them, even if the other person is nice, it stops mattering at a point, and people devolve into that survivalist mode, and they will do anything to make sure that it's them and not the other person that survives. So in order to not let it get there, you can't be manipulated through false scarcity, but you should also be taking action now to ensure that you have a decent stockpile, because I think about 10 years ago I remember reading a report that about half of all households have less than 3 days food in the fridge and pantry.
I do not doubt it. Like in
Yeah.
New York City, people don't keep more than a couple of days worth of of stuff.
Now, what
They're
happens if
so unprepared.
the Suez Canal is blocked and nothing gets through for a few weeks? And
Well, actually, and that was probably the point of that too, right? To
Yes.
create a supply chain fake problem
yep, exactly.
to make it look like, and of course, making it seem like it was a dick stuck in a canal was hilarious, but it was also a way to bring attention to it. And I always wince when I see people laughing about these stories and not realizing you're being pointed there for a reason.
Yeah.
You're being pointed there when the whole rest of the world, well, on the one hand, the whole rest of the world is burning and being blown up, and all of the minerals are being taken by the billionaires. That's what's happening on one hand. On the other hand, the Western countries are the ones being imploded even more right now.
Yes.
So no one wants you to notice that the Western countries are being pillaged and flattened deliberately for the benefit of the billionaires and their top-down control and their dreams of having a serf feudal class. But yeah, when people hear the stories about the dick in the canal, it's hilarious, right? Yeah, it makes me laugh. One of the best months of my life was that whole Anthony Weiner thing. Oh my
yeah.
God, the headlines on the newspapers like, Wiener got cooked. Oh, I was cracking
Yes.
up that whole month. But
They wrote themselves.
but yeah, so why then are people's focus drawn to those headlines? Yeah, it perfectly sets up, this is why you cannot get the supplies you need, and this is why you need to fight with everyone around you because, whoops, a global shortage.
You can't be fighting them if you're worried that you're running out of food in 4 days, right? Yeah. Even if people just were to see the truth about our best options to overpower these globalists and take freedom back by force, of course, I'm talking about peaceful force, not even just mostly peaceful, but fully peaceful force. The problem becomes, well, you're a human being that needs a certain amount of water and a certain amount of food and a certain kind of shelter from bad weather. And if you don't have those things in a regular fashion, you're going to be miserable. You're probably not going to withstand the time it's going to take to win. And too few people are prepared for even not having food for a week, let alone if they were to lay siege to their enemy's castle, what they would need to bring with them to outlast them. So there's definitely an onus on everybody that not just for their own family's sake, but to prepare for whatever might come in the future. They need to look at what they have in their pantry and other areas of their life and say, what do I need more of? When they should be using their resources to acquire more food, more brass and lead and other precious metals, and become more prepared for the future, because there's going to come a point where the second round of toilet paper craziness gets serious.
Yeah. Yeah, and when they release the variants that they're really excited about, like even Phil Yates only mentioned number 2, the second
Yeah.
one that was really going to get your attention. And we know they have this on the books till 2025. So by that time, no one will remember the old world, and they will already have started a new generation of kids that thinks this is normal, and that has a bunch of probably some mental instability because there's things that they missed out on, like normal human bonding. Can you imagine 5 years if you're born last year and you're going to miss 5 years of interpreting facial expressions?
Well, they're already noticing a problem with speech. Young kids that are in that age where they should be developing speech right now, they're having problems because they're not able to see how the lips are forming the words, right?
Well,
That's
and
already
that
happening.
that comes down to why our psychotic ruling class doesn't care, why they don't need a functioning population. What is their point of view that they don't need a healthy quality population underneath them, except that our destruction suits their purposes?
Yeah, my opinion on that's a little bit sci-fi and not exactly something I can approve, other than logic and reason dictate that if us little peons were allowed to know about Dolly the sheep back in 1997, then in some remote backwater of the world where human cloning laws were way ahead of their time, people like David Rockefeller absolutely were involved in running human cloning labs. And there is some information that's come out that can be found out there from leaked projects and CIA reports and stuff about human cloning. And it's pretty obvious that when these people who already have so much money that money becomes almost meaningless to them, like when you are worth $8 trillion, you start to care only about power. And money to you becomes just an instrument to wield more power. And it's not so much the money as it is the power that you're looking for, the power that money brings. And then you come up with a system that could give you full, total global control. And that is what this is all about. These elites want full control of the globe, but they also want the other holy grail, which is to live forever. And if we're allowed to know about Dolly the sheep, 30 years ago, then what are they not telling us? What did they have in these bunkers in these backwater countries where they were doing secret human cloning, guaranteed? Did they perfect human cloning and brain transplants? Did they figure out a way to keep brains from aging?
And we know that our population's dying off is important. It's directly tied with their desire to live forever, because they want the masses to lessen so that their chosen numbers can multiply and ours can die out. So their desire to be immortal is directly tied to why they're fine with us keeling over.
As we see this movement now happening, this is the beginning of the great cull. Within the next 20 to 30 years, their goal is to have the world's population reduced down to somewhere between 500 million and 1.5 billion people. And even that might be a high number from the real number, because that's the number we're ascertaining from the Georgia Guidestones, or like Ted Turner have said about the desired levels. Jacques Cousteau talked about it.
I think it might have been from the Heritage Foundation, I'm not sure, but a number about that in some kind of extinction event, that a lot of people would die in the first 6 months. So if you made it outside of the 6-month mark, you're actually doing great. So the even worse period would be the 6-month window, which makes some sense, because you're going to have a lot of weak people and a lot of angry people fighting each other.
I think I remember that being about if all the power went down.
Yeah, that's true. I think it might be something like a solar flare, which they could totally do to us, and they've talked about it. They've openly talked about, whoops, digital pandemic. Oh, the internet can't work now, and there's this virus, and yeah, they act like it's a surprise.
Everybody that needs a CPAP machine or is on dialysis, they all die in the first week, and then you've got the pharmaceutical companies can't make insulin, and all these things that come later, and eventually you end up with a pretty large pile of bodies in a very short period of time. I think they're doing the groundwork, right?
Yeah, and then I was going to say that what I see unfolding is we have amazing people. We have 80 million people who chose freedom over slavery. We have all those people, and we have a huge amount of weaponry, but nobody feels they can use their weapons for self-defense. But we have these amazing people, so I feel like communities are going to start taking shape where people really have to start seeking each other out and then building those alliances and finding each other. Because also, if they do something to us online, like they already have us censored, but if they go farther and do more, it'll be almost impossible to find the people who think like you.
Exactly. That's why I recommend people get themselves some CB radios, get yourself a handle, find the people that are within.
That would be good, CB radios? I don't know.
Well,
and
that's
then,
a start.
That's different than a ham radio, right?
Yeah, basically just get yourself something that can't be shut off remotely that you can use to connect with people.
Okay, someone said that a ham radio, if you have a license, the government there's some rule that they can search your house without a warrant.
Yeah, there is something there. I'm not an expert on that.
Yeah, well, it surprised me because I thought about, well, how can people stay in touch? But if there's that kind of regulation, man, that's good to know.
Yeah, I think the other thing that we need to do is we need to find a way to identify each other. And this is something that I've thought about is, maybe we all need to have some colored piece of fabric that we hang in our windows that signals to each other that we're on each other's side, because they like to pretend we're the small minority. And I think if we were all to put on the same uniform and walk into the street and see the real number of who we are and how many there are of us, I guarantee it's way above 80 million.
Wallace, that is so true. That is so true. There are huge numbers of people who choose freedom. But we've lost that whole ancient art, like how the Christians had the fish symbol, the ancient art of communicating.
Yeah, and on the other part of it is if we were to fight a war at some point, how are we going to know who's on our side, right? So uniforms are one way to do that. Having a physical, an obvious physical identifier is something that we're going to have to figure out and work out, because we're never going to want to accidentally go at each other not knowing who each other are. And
I know, that's awful. Any kind of symbol.
Yeah, anything that we can do that's fairly easy for people to replicate. And I had the idea of like maybe an orange piece of fabric tied around your arm when you're going out, and an orange piece of fabric hanging in your window or up on your flagpole or something.
Well, then they'll start to hit those people.
Well, yeah, that is potential, but I think we're already there, right? I think they're already going to hit us, right? But
it would maybe be our choice of symbols as opposed to their choice, where they associate red hats with what they want to stop. But still, yeah, that ancient art of communicating, huh?
I think it's important that we know who's who, and I think we're already past the point of hiding, and we already know that they know who we are. They read every word we say. They know our opinions. They've flagged us as not being cool with the New World Order. They already know who we are. So we're not outing ourselves to anyone except our neighbors. And I think most people would find that you're outing yourself to your ally more than your enemy.
Ooh, that's an important thing right there. Actually, yeah, I've noticed that some of the people who didn't take their signs down yet, I love them and I want to go meet them.
And you know what?
Because we are allies.
There's a lot of people that are on the other side of the fence that aren't really your enemy either, and I think that's something we have to start to understand as well, is they may be on board with some things we're not on board with, but they've got a line in the sand, some of them, and it's refreshing to see. I've seen some of them that are guaranteed on the other side that support Biden, but I've seen them now starting to speak out against vaccine passports and mandatory vaccinations.
Have you noticed Naomi Wolf? I mean, not the sharpest.
Right.
Not the sharpest, but she does try.
You know what? I don't care how smart you are, if you're willing to, even if you believe in a whole bunch of the other lies, if you're willing to at least stand against the vaccine passports, and mandatory vaccinations, then I'm going to support you in that argument.
Yeah, I was surprised. Even Justin Amash mentioned that the other day. And he's such a phony and such a disappointment in so many ways. But he did acknowledge that the vaccine passport is, well, what he pointed out is it's not letting you grocery shop without that.
Yeah, so we can't be allowing this. And when we see people that are our ideological opponent agreeing with us, that's a moment where we need to drop our argument against them in other places and thank them and say, even though we disagree on all these other things, the fact that you're willing to stand against the vaccine passport and against mandatory vaccination, or that has earned you from me a thank you. That is so rare on the other side of the fence for people to take that stance. And they're risking a lot because we know what they're like. They're a pack of wild hyenas and they eat each other for minor
like
disagreements.
Yeah, and the media does make it look like there's many more of them in agreement and on one side than there really are, because the media is like off the rails on its own. When they talk about things like voter ID, they have this whole narrative that's really not in the minds of the people. If you walk into any big city, which is really funny because, you go to the bodegas and see what people are talking about, and most of those people would be like, of course I have an ID. And they would be insulted and think it's really weird that you don't know that. Not you, but all these patronizing people like Chelsea Handler.
Yeah, it's a really strange time to actually see some of these people that are on the left or complete phonies at least showing themselves to be not 100% bought and paid for by the globalist establishment. And you assume all of them are, and maybe there's just a small portion of them that are being told to say this just to make it appear like it's not everybody, but I don't think that they would risk that because right now they care so much about manipulating public opinion. I can't see them planting a few controlled oppositions that would sway people the other way. So even when we disagree with these people and we think that they're the dumbest people on the planet, some of them, when they take a position that's on our side like this, that's this important, we should support them in it and encourage them to keep saying it and put out some love to them for doing it, because we should recognize we get canceled all the time, but they eat each other when they start to disagree like this.
That's true.
Yeah.
By the way, speaking of love, okay, so we're looking at the end of the world as we know it, right?
Yes.
And at least the parts that we felt we knew. The Constitution, those old ideas about individuals. We were supposed to like George Washington, now we're supposed to hate George Washington. But in the middle of all that, I took a road trip this past week, and I'm actually really good at disappearing. I love disappearing. Ever since I was little, I'll disappear all over different places, and no one knows where I went. My mom hates it. So I was on this road trip, and she asked me, please tell me when you get there. Okay. So I thought I was doing a really great job, and I texted her halfway, and I told her where I was, and she wrote back, it's another chance for me to say I love you. And that it just surprised me, because we've known each other a long time, and yet that's where her mind was at. And we're in the end of the world, and that's where her mind was at. It's another chance for me to say I love you. So that made me think.
We need to seize the day and make sure that even though we're in a fight that requires so much effort, focus, we need to also smell the roses and not take anybody for granted. And
and it
make sure
transports
everybody
you to
knows.
a different place.
And have a dead man switch, because some of us might go before the others, and there might be things that you're going to want to say that you won't be able to say. And
Ooh, that's a good idea.
there's services out there, actually. I think if you type in Google or DuckDuckGo, which is slightly less Orwellian, Dead Man Switch email, I believe there's a service that allows you to have 2 different pre-typed emails sent out to a big list of
Oh, wow,
blind
that's
carbon copied
interesting.
people when you
That's
don't check in.
interesting.
And I recommend everybody do that, just in case there's unfinished business or things that you want to say and you're a vocal, prominent person standing on the front line.
Yes, and, you know, I think about when we get to the other side, what are we going to care about? And even if the knowledge that you and I are curious about, we're curious about the truth of this, right? But maybe on the other side we won't care. But we also have some of the best friends on earth. We have some of the best people around us. So
Absolutely.
whatever happens in this next 5 years, till the World Bank thinks we'll be so exhausted and so cold that they can let us do something else in 2025. You and I are here now. And you had a bad day, but I still had a good time talking to you.
Likewise, I think that this is what we're fighting for. We're fighting for the freedom to get together and share what it means to be human. And they want to end that. They want to create a world where this can't exist anymore. And I think that this is worth fighting for, and it's worth dying for. And I'd much rather die with my friends than live in a land filled with monsters.
Me too. I'm totally fine with it. I'm totally fine with it. To me, that's a life well lived.
Absolutely.
If I got
And
to
who
sit
knows?
here and just laugh with you, fine. I'll take
And
it.
who knows? We might ridicule the monsters into hiding, or they might just completely explode because they just can't handle our greatness.
Well, they do
Right.
want to kill jokes, and it is sexy to be free. So no wonder our people are the sexy ones. No wonder. Because that
Slaves are kind of
raw-
gross.
Yeah. The other, I don't even know what to call them, but these people who pretend they love nature, they hate nature. They want everything castrated. They want everything in nature turned upside down, reversed and corrected, and sewn up and cut off. I
Yeah, they
like
like
nature
to-
the way it is.
They like to knock forests to the ground so they can put up wind turbines so they can save nature.
And perfect it, right?
Yeah. No.
Oh.
They're gems, those people. But maybe there's still hope for them. Maybe in a world post-monster, some people won't be so afraid to think for themselves.
That's very mature of you, Wallace.
Well, I try. It's not easy.
You're the
looks like this
mature one
fire-
today.
Looks like this fire is getting low. I should probably throw another log on that.
Thank you, Wallace.